It's Thursday night in East Lansing, Michigan. Welcome. Come on in. SpartanMag.com. SpartanMag Live. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag Live. This is our third or fourth try. First time you've seen it. But we've had some problems behind the scenes here a little bit, but I think we're okay. Sorry we're a little bit late. Can you hear me now? Everybody out there. I'll be waiting to see if you can hear me. I think we're okay. Anyway, just had some technical problems out of sight. And I might have said a couple bad words, but I'm happy now. I think we're okay. Do we have a thumbs up? Kenneth Roberts says, thanks. I want to see if you can hear me or not. Appreciate the people filing in. If you're not sure what this nonsense is, we've got a little website called SpartanMag.com. It's part of the Rivals.com network. We cover Michigan State basketball, football, recruiting. We'll be talking some basketball tonight. You still cannot hear? John G saying can heat. Let me know. You can hear. Kenneth Roberts says yes, loud and clear. Thanks a lot. That's the way this show is, people. But John G says you can hear. Okay, great. I know this show, it's got a little bit of Wayne's World to it. Those of you that are old enough to remember that. I'm not in my parents' basement. This is not Aurora, Illinois. This is not a test. This is the real thing. Spartan Mag Live coming at you. We appreciate everybody filing in. I will be pausing for a moment to send out a Twitter notice to let people that we're here having all this fun with everybody here. In the meantime, go ahead and post some questions over in the chat area, and we'll be happy to field those. I also have some questions that I rounded up over at the Underground Bunker message board. Invited Michigan State fans, SpartanMag.com subscribers, to go ahead and post questions. We will field those questions here. We've got some basketball, got some football, got some recruiting. Been ramping up the recruiting a little bit because Michigan State's been ramping up the recruiting, and it's been interesting to watch some of the early trends taking place in Michigan State recruiting. And Michigan State basketball, as the Spartans try to gain some traction toward what they hope is going to be what it would be a 23rd straight year in the NCAA tournament. 2 weeks ago seemed like not very likely. Still seems unlikely, but a big game against Iowa here at the Breslin Center on Saturday could be a big step toward changing some of those things. Not only would a victory mean so much in that regard, not everything, but it'll mean a lot. But secondly, Michigan State will have to play well to get a victory against Iowa. And if they're playing well enough to beat Iowa, I know Iowa's been shaky lately. Took care of Rutgers last night. Iowa did. But if Michigan State's good enough to beat Iowa, that could bode well for what they can do later against a very challenging schedule. But the defense is starting to come around a little bit. I know they're not strong in all areas, but the team defense is getting better because they're spending more time with Tom Izzo. They've had more games, more practices. They've actually had the routine of a college basketball team for the last 2 weeks, something that they've not really had since, I don't know, maybe early January. And at that time, Michigan State was trying to figure out what the point guard situation was. So Michigan State was trying to figure out the point guard situation, then things get on again, off again, on again, off again. 2 weeks without Izzo in December. 3 weeks with everything shut down in late January. And you combine that with a very difficult Big Ten slate, and it's been hard for them to maintain oxygen. But if they beat Iowa, that'll do so much. I'm going to send out a tweet right now. Appreciate your patience. Send out a tweet to let people know this nonsense is going on. And sometimes that brings in some riffraff, but we can handle the riffraff. We can handle the riffraff, right? Anyway, I'm going to switch this over here to the basketball area. Breslin Center. We were there a couple nights ago, Michigan State with a victory over Penn State. You can find the coverage over at SpartanMag.com. Myself, Paul Konendijk, the VCast after the game from Breslin Center, the .comp opinion piece. Threw some thoughts out there. You don't have to agree with everything I say, but those are long articles. Hopefully it makes you think. Hopefully you enjoy them. And as we observe this Michigan State team trying to journey through a difficult 2021 year in a lot of ways, a couple of wins now. We'll talk more about them in a moment. Let's go straight to the mailbag right now. It's a football question. This is from Hayden V. from frigid Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he says, which position in football is the toughest to evaluate on film and which one is the easiest? That's from Hayden V in Grand Rapids. He's talking about recruiting evaluation. He's asking for my opinion. I think coaches, I'm not sure what coaches would say. I remember Pat Shermer one time saying, hey, it's easy to tell, it's easy to identify a great one at any position. Where a program has to make a lot of hay is looking at that 3-star and seeing 4-star capabilities in that player, and then having the ability to evaluate a player and get that out of them. Me personally, easiest, I've had a little bit more luck over the years identifying defensive linemen and saying, yeah, that guy is different. Strength, quickness, that flexibility, use of the hands. Not only, they can be taught the use of the hands when they get to Michigan State and different colleges, but some guys just have some power that when they lay hands on people, they get some shock. D'Antonio used to call that shock. You combine those things, and defensive linemen, there are not a lot of people with that jumbo size and quickness and hip ankle flexibility, able to turn the corner and those type of things. There's just not a lot of those people, and you'll see a lot of them that don't quite have everything covered. But I tell you, by the same token, I never would have thought Kenny Willekes was going to become Kenny Willekes. Linebacker. Kevin Pickelman was kind of like that. Linebacker, kind of a smallish high school, put on a lot of weight at Michigan State, ended up being a serviceable defensive lineman. But defensive line, I would say, I would agree with Detroit Spartan. He says quarterback is the easiest, offensive line the hardest on the chat area over here. I'm going to say quarterback is difficult in some ways. I mean, you can look at quarterback and see some guys have arm or release that might be jacked up, and you're like, man, that guy's never going to get it turned around. It's not going to happen. If a guy's 6'1" without much arm strength, just, okay, put him over there on that field. We're just going to look at these ones. But even the ones that you look at, the guys that do have the frame, the arm strength, release, and all of that, then the hard part is their ability to make decisions, processing defenses. That's why you always have 3 or 4 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. Of course, you're guarding against injury, and you're hoping the young guys come around. You're hoping to have an older one at some point. But I look at, Andrew Maxwell looked beautiful in the camps. Big dude, could really turn it loose. One thing that was a little bit different, Detroit Cali's calling in, but we don't have it hooked up right now, man. I might be able to get him. Hold on. Let's see. Hey, Cali Spartan.
Hey, what's happening, Jim?
I'm good. I didn't have the phone thing hooked up. You had the number saved. I wasn't going to take phone calls tonight. That's fine. That's fine. We got you on now. You called. I appreciate it. Hey, callers, let me know. Thumbs up, or people on the comments areas, let me know if you can hear, if you heard Cali Spartan just then. If so, we'll go ahead and take a call from him. I might even open up the phone lines. I just happen to have the wires handy, and I plugged it in. And I'll wait to say, hey, Cali Spartan, I'll wait to see if the people out here can hear you or not. If they can, we'll turn you loose. We'll hear what you got to say. But I'm going to answer the rest of this question here in a moment. With quarterbacks, Cali Spartan, I was asked a little bit about which position is the hardest to evaluate when it comes to recruiting. And I mentioned, Andrew Maxwell. Yep, okay, Spunky181 says it sounds good, Cali, so you're on. But let me finish this answer. Andrew Maxwell looked good. Hey, good kid, too. Always very patient with us in the media and did his best. Not all of it turned out all that well, but I mean, in terms of championships for him, but he did a great job supporting the other quarterbacks, and it really helped that team pursue championships. Nothing against Maxwell. I will say one thing about Maxwell. I remember watching him at camp when he was a recruit from 2 fields away, and I was like, oh, that's got to be Andrew Maxwell. I've heard a lot about him. That's got to be him, because there's one dude that just looked different, and it looked great. But there's something about the way the ball came out of his hands. I don't know what it was. But that day, and even at Michigan State, didn't throw a real catchable ball. It just seemed like I don't know if the nose was diving on people or velocity. I don't know what it was, but he didn't have, a lot of people don't have that Joe Montana touch, but not the most catchable pass. But you can look at those things, and some of these quarterbacks, they can check all the boxes and still not have whatever that it factor is. Sometimes it's processing defenses. Tyler O'Connor, you look at his high school film and you compare it to someone like, I always compared him to Dan Persa, who was really good at Northwestern. And Persa was good at Northwestern. And Northwestern wanted Tyler O'Connor. O'Connor got a chance at Michigan State. Didn't work out. I think that was 2016. Although Tyler O'Connor did engineer that upset at Ohio State in 2015 when Connor Cook was injured, and he will always have that to hang his hat on. And Tyler O'Connor, good guy also, but I would disagree with Detroit Spartan about that a little bit, about quarterback evaluation. Yes, the physical, but in terms of that level of precision, it's elusive, and you never know till they get to the major leagues whether they can hit the curveball. Same thing with the quarterbacks. So anyway, Callie Spartan, thanks for calling in. You didn't even have a number and you called in, so I've got to appreciate that commitment to SpartanMag Live. How you doing, my friend? You doing all right? Do we still have a basketball season or not?
Actually, that's why I called in.
Yeah.
I saw the team gave a little more heart these past couple of games, so I figured, let me see if Comp will enter the fall.
Yeah.
But so I mean, we've been complaining a lot. I'm not going to say we, because I don't think I've ever heard you really complain, Comp. But like a lot of people on the board, myself included, have been complaining about the lineup all year. Not all year. When we started losing, that's when we started complaining about the lineup. And like in unison, the talking heads, the voices got loud. And I think that I'm happy I saw the staff make changes, just try things. I'm happy that it worked out. I'm also happy that the way these kids are responding. Like, for example, what was it the game? Who was the game before last? Before
Nebraska.
The last game, who we played? Nebraska.
Lost to Iowa, Nebraska, yeah, Penn State.
Yeah. It was, so I remember. You remember when Bingham got taken out in the second half, and he was just sitting on the bench, and he just didn't look happy at all.
Yes, against Nebraska. Yes.
I'm like, my opinion of Bingham has been up and down for the past couple of years, but I thought I was like. I knew in the back of my, how like you see something in a game and you know how it's going to change the trajectory of a team the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And I see Bingham sitting on the bench. I see Izzo chew him out, and like I see him not get up and be like boisterous for his teammates the rest of the game. And I'm like, depending on how he responds after this is going to depend if we win another game or not. And I felt that because he has been such a huge game changer on the defensive side. Like I saw a stat today that said, in terms of adjusted margin of like expected victory, when Bingham was on the floor versus when he has been this year, right now we're number 65 in the country for the difference in points when we win. When Bingham's on the floor, we go all the way to number 13. Like that's a huge margin. Like that's insane how one player can do that, and it's like I mean, there's people who do that all the time, but for us to have someone on the team who can do that is game changing. That gives hope, and for people who are like, well, these have been some ugly wins against some not all right teams. Well, Penn State and Ken Palm, which is like, in my opinion, probably one of the more reliable ways to rate a basketball team in college or just any place, was number 30. So even though their record doesn't show them having been a great team, they're on paper. The numbers say they're a good team. So the fact that we were able to win and to the way we won, see, I like winning by a point or 2 points because it shows you can grind it out. It shows you the mental toughness, and it also shows that corrections were made because we lost this game against Purdue earlier this year. This exact game we had against Purdue, and we lost it. They won it, and it was not just the kids who played different. It was the staff who made better decisions. You can't have. I'm not going to harp on it too much, but when you got a stretch kid like Bingham, and you got a guy like the Hall and Henry, who, in my opinion, are our best defenders on the team. When you got guys like that, you don't have any one of them on the bench in crunch time when you need to stop a guy from scoring. When when we turned the ball over at the end of the game, when Hall got the ball stolen from him, and it was Henry, Bingham, and I forgot who else was out there at the time, but they didn't harp over it. They just ran back on defense, and everybody just clamped onto their guy. Like, you know, it wasn't any fouling. It was just, I'm just going to make sure I'm in their way. And that was all they needed. You don't always have to, like, blow people out. Sometimes you got to show you can make the right play to just finish a game. And, I mean, I don't expect us to win like this every single time because that's crazy. But, like, the fact that you want to be able to see a team be able to win in different ways throughout the year, because in the tournament, you're going to have to win in one of these type of ways. If you only shown that you can win by blowing out, and then somebody puts the screws on you, and they want to slow the game down or make every position count, and you're like a running team, and you can't show you can adjust, you're not gonna win that game probably. Like, or if you can't show that you can't bang down low, or if you can't find a way to score, like this was a growth game. And to go back to my point about Bingham making that decision to bounce back and play his better ball the next game is because, I mean, Marcus Bingham's a young guy. He's 2 months older than AJ, right?
He's a young junior.
2 months older than AJ.
Yeah, he's a young junior.
So I mean, people have talked about his maturity, and like he's done crazy stuff that has not helped us before. But I'm also going to give him his props for doing what he's supposed to do. He played like a mature young person, a mature young man this last game. He did what he needed to do. He showed heart. He made the right plays. It wasn't perfect because no one's perfect, right? But he showed a leap in terms of being able to take the criticism. I don't know what happened. I wasn't at practice, but he came out there and he looked like he was great to handle business.
Well, I tell you what happens there. That's one of Izzo's specialties, and it's kind of from the Gene Cady school. You know, during the game, you know, you got some crisis situations going on, and it's going to be serious. I mean, you're going to face a coach who is as angry at you as you and I when we took Dad's car out and rear-ended a tree and came home and had to tell him about it. That's the type of dad you're facing, type of coach you're facing when some of these great coaches are trying to drive home their point. And usually when they're mad at a player, it's probably the 19th or the 20th time that they've told them about something, right? Now, in the meantime, Bingham was improving in terms of defensive knowledge, you know, how he's defending ball screens, whether they're doing, you know, jamming or hedge help recover, whether they're shacking it or whether they're feathering it, however they're doing it up and over or through. They've got different ways to do ball screens. And the way he's bending at the knees and moving laterally and showing and, getting back to his man, he's doing a good job of that, better and better and better. So what he got busted for was shooting a three-pointer early in a shot clock from the corner. And they've told him in the past, last year they let him shoot a little bit, didn't make any. Then he started losing his green light. So if he makes more of those in practice and so forth, maybe that light can become green again someday. But they don't want him shooting that. End of a shot clock, that's different. And they would love to have him as a pick-and-pop weapon. That's part of what they recruited him for. But the percentages are not bearing that out right now. And right now, every game is a must-win, and they're having such a struggle that every possession is a must possession. So they just, Marcus, we don't want you, shooting a corner three-pointer with 20 on the shot clock. And he did it anyway. So Izzo's like,
but did you see that?
Izzo's like, we don't have time to ask you not to do these things. We're going to need you on the court. And how do I demonstrate to you that that is not acceptable? Well, they got the Danny DeVito Tom Izzo. You know what I'm saying? So now here's where he's good. This is where Katie's good. Katie they used to say would yell at you and make you like it. Now, there was nothing that Marcus Bingham liked about it during the Nebraska game when he caught it. But Izzo's very good at smoothing things over, whether it's right after the game or the next day or practice. I'm not sure. But if I know Izzo, he reached out to Bingham probably after that game, texted him, called him, whatever, got it smoothed over, had a good day of practice, came back, started again, and you saw a different Marcus Bingham. That is part of the genius of Tom Izzo. When you're seeing it play out on a game, it looks sinister, and a lot of people's like, man, that's not for me. I can never play for that guy. But you'll notice that through the course of the season, a lot of those players will put their arm around him, and he's got a way of smoothing it over. He's demanding, and he holds people accountable, but he doesn't turn them against him. There's some players that have gotten away, and they've never been able to get it straightened out. But Bingham, you saw him on the bench. He got balled out pretty good, and hanging his head on the bench. Body language is bad. Came back, fresh as a daisy 2 days later, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and played some excellent, it had an impact on defense, snaring defensive rebounds like I've never seen him do. And part of that is the court awareness, hedge help recover, where's the ball, and he was just owning balls to the point where you start seeing Penn State guys not even go up to contend for a ball in his airspace because he was owning that. And deflections and steals, yeah, he's becoming a plus player away from the ball and on defense. But you're right. That was a journey. That was a personal journey. We've seen it before with other guys.
I want to address a few things you just said about that. There's two of them about Bingham and one of them about the team. So you mentioned three point shooting is again man, which I agree with. If you're not going to hit him at an actual good clip, like he said in the quote after the game, he's like, if you're going to take the shot, make the shot. Bingham against Penn State was out there on the perimeter, and he got the ball and he whipped his hands up as if he was going to shoot a three, and hesitated and made a move, and we scored on that play. So you're right. He broke it down, and he's like, he stopped playing. Like, I feel like, how there's a point in a person's life where they like a light comes on. It may not stay on, but like a light comes on. It's like, I got to do something for the whole. When I saw that play happen, I was like, oh man, this is the moment. This is the moment where we know if what happened last game was going to snowball, and it didn't. He made the right play. We scored on it. But to get back to the other thing you're saying about him rebounding, I mean, it's simple, but it's complex because if you watch Bingham earlier in his career up until like even this point now, he just thought he used his length. He's like, I'm just going to put my hands up, right? It's a difference between going for a rebound and taking a rebound. And by that, I mean, it's using two hands. How many times have we heard Izzo say you got to use two hands? And you see guys jump up and they try to just reach up with one arm and grab the ball down. No, last game I saw him constantly jump up, two hands, grab a ball. And that does a few things. That either allows you to grab it, or it shows that you have positioning, and that's where it shows like you didn't put your hand down, or you try to foul somebody. You're giving your body up to try and grab the ball. And with Bingham's size, and if you know that, like I think I saw another stat where over the past two games, he's gone for either it's a wide range number, but like it's either for the season or for the past two games. But the past two games, I think he's gone for like 11 free throws and made like 10 of them or something like that. He's shooting over 80% free throws for the season. Like he's when he gets to the line, he's actually converting, which is dangerous because it's like if he's drawing fouls on another person's center, and we know big men are premium. For some reason, this is the year of big men in the Big Ten. Like if he's taking them out the game, that improves our chances of winning significantly because now Marvel's the biggest guy on the court. And not Marvel, but Bingham's the biggest guy on the court in terms of length and everything. And we know his shot blocking ability it's great. I'm not gonna continue on that too long. But like that's my feeling. Bingham, he was doing good. I applaud him. But
and that shot blocking, earlier in the season, there were times when he had a couple good shot blocks, and then sometimes he'd come out of his shoes hunting the shot block. There's a point of diminishing returns, going for too many shot blocks. And then if you don't get it, then your defense is giving up. You're giving up some slippage. There's some teams that want to block shots all over the place, and that's how they play. Michigan State's always played it where we'll block a shot when it gets near the rim and contest and so forth, but we'd rather stay secure, stay square, contest, but box out your man and don't give up the rebound. And that's just the way they've done it. Other people have done it other ways. Michigan State's won a lot of games doing it that way, and that's quality control. What he did with Bingham getting on his back about shooting that three-pointer for the 20th time over the course of 2 years, that's quality control. At some point, if he starts shooting well, they'll change that. But the way they want to do it right now is, just like I said, don't need him shooting early in a shot clock. Now, the free throw percentage you're talking about with Bingham is interesting. That is reflective of good form, good shot mechanics. He's got a good shot. And I've always said, I didn't make this up, but if you got a guy that's like a 90% free throw shooter with his foul shots 90%, that guy can become a very good 3-point shooter. If he's got the mentality,
it's directly related.
Yes, and that one guy that we saw make that transformation was Austin Thornton. He was like a 90% free throw shooter before he ever had the green light to really fire threes. And he really didn't become a three-point shooter until like his senior year after all those players left, and it was pretty much Draymond Green and his friends. And then somehow they won the Big Ten and became a number 1 seed and ran into problems in the Big Ten tournament because of scheduling and so forth. But Thornton, took it from the free throw line to three-point range. Bingham can become that guy at some point in his career. It might be in Europe as a pro someday, but he'll be able to shoot threes at some point in his career.
Well, so the other point I want to make about the team, because I know you got a bunch of stuff you want to talk about, Comp, is it's the return of Gabe and what that means in terms of his energy. And, like, he never stopped practicing. Like, I 100% believe, like, after the beginning of the season, you saw him, like, on Twitter, like, people were showing, like, this isn't before the game. Like, Gabe's still putting up shots after each game. Like, I 100% believe even at quarantine, he was doing some type of training. Like, I believe Gabe is the most focused player on this team.
He
may not be the best, but I believe he cares the most. I believe this is his life. And
no, here's another thing. It is his life. And he had a very interesting point after the Nebraska game. He said something along the lines of, basketball is all I have. It's the only thing I have that makes me happy. So, I mean, yeah, and he was out there after the Penn State game working on his three-point shot while I was trying to write an article. He was down there working. His heart's in the right place. His mind is in the right place. Played well against Nebraska. Came out against Penn State. Had 2 of his shot selections that Izzo didn't like. And I was talking about this after our last show, or 2 shows ago. Was it, what was the guy's name? Mays, I think is his name. He calls here, and I apologize that I got your name wrong, but he called after the show was over, and he and I talked for like 30 minutes off the air. And he agreed with me about this, and you might agree also. The older I get, the harder it is for me to ascertain and understand and identify the difference between a good shot and a bad shot. Because, I mean, you and I came around probably at a certain time when, you didn't... I mean, at the YMCA, it's okay to just fire up shots. Those guys used to be called chuckers, someone that will shoot you out of a game. You know what I mean? But now you watch some teams like Alabama, and that's what they do. And I remember when Loyola Marymount came out in 1989, and the way they played with, Bo Kimball and Gathers and Per Steamer and those guys. It actually was 1990. And the year, they went through the NCAA tournament. They blew out Michigan, I think, in the Sweet 16. And nobody had ever played like that before. Paul Westhead was the head coach, in terms of running and shooting three-pointers in transition. But not only three-pointers, but like off-balance rushed three-pointers. But you watch enough college basketball, you'll see teams in transition or even in the half court shooting rushed, contested, off-balance three-pointers with plenty on the shot clock and shots going in. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of teams all over the country that do that and miss those shots and lose. But if you happen to watch Missouri against Tennessee and Missouri wins that day, you're like, man, look at the way Missouri plays. Now, 2 nights later, you might not watch them against Ole Miss when they're losing and those shots are missing. But there were a couple shots in transition. I remember Darrell Summers making those shots against Maryland in the Sweet 16 in 2009. On back, Respert could do it because Respert was Respert. But the shots that he took, they were hurried. Gabe Brown against Penn State. They were contested. They probably were not high percentage three-point shots. There's high percentage three-point shots on an inside-out, stepping into it. Then there's low percentage three-point shots like that. He took that one and took another one. And both times Izzo gave it to him. Didn't like that shot selection. But again, it gets back to what I was talking about with Mays and maybe you. Just me talking, I have trouble understanding a good shot these days. Because Gabe Brown took those shots. Other teams do it. Michigan State's got a lot of banners up there. They do it one way. And the quality control is so important. But Gabe Brown, good heart, good kid. When he was shooting those shots, he felt good about it. But he was told on no uncertain terms that those were not good shots. But he makes shots like that sometimes. Other guys do too. So I'm like, if you're Tom Izzo and you're the assistant coaches, at what point, what's a good shot? What's a bad shot? I kind of have a good idea what it is in the Izzo lexicon and the way he wants to do things. But nationally, we're seeing what, NBA is a different game, but there's 45% of shots taken are three-pointers now in the NBA or something like that. And I know that's a different game. But Gabe Brown took a couple shots. He caught some heat for it. Rode the bench a little bit more because of it. and he'd come back strong off of COVID, played well against Nebraska. And remember, he had only played 6 minutes in that loss to Purdue, which was the last game before the COVID shutdown for Michigan State. So he'd been waiting a long time without being able to practice with his teammates. Had a good game against Nebraska. He probably felt real good about himself. Izzo got him fired up about being the 6th man of the year this year and all that stuff. Hasn't really come to fruition. He did have a shot against Nebraska. That was like ball fake, 16 feet toward the rim or not. I think it is. And I can tell you why later.
Whatever shot goes in is a good shot.
Yeah, it's a good shot. And also, I guess I'll expand on that a little bit. You get some of these, and I don't discount analytics. I know analytics have their place in basketball, especially college basketball. And there's the theory that the worst shot is a shot with your foot on the three-point line. Maybe that's true. And people saying, the medium range shot is obsolete and you're stupid to be taking them. And people are talking about, you got to take X numbers of three-pointers. Now, that's great. If this were bowling, in bowling, you've got the bowling ball, the lane doesn't change, you got 10 pins no matter what. There's no defense, right? So this is not bowling. This is basketball. There's defense out there. You can say that the three-point shot should be taken over a medium range shot until, like you said, what if it's not open? So if defenses are getting out on a three-point shooter, and let's say you're a 39% three-point shooter, and the defense is good enough that it might be a case that it might take that down on that particular shot, that you might only have a 25% chance of making it because they're out on you. But if you shot fake one dribble 16 foot, now you might be taking a 55% shot. Are you telling me it's better to take a 25% three-point shot than a 55% pull-up jumper? Kevin Durant still does pull-up jumpers, right? Medium range. It bothers me when people say that. Now, I agree. It's better to have a three-point shot, especially if it's open. But people that think that there's no use for an in-between shot, sometimes when that shot clock is down, that is going to be the one open shot you can create for yourself. It might be a medium-range pull-up shot. And yes, it's still an important shot of basketball. And people that say it's not need to just go, instead of watching basketball, they just need to get their stats and their analytics and go sit in the corner and suck their thumb and just read numbers all day and don't even bother watching the game. What's up, Callie?
So the reason, I wanted to piggyback off that point because it leads into my point I was bringing about the team, and specifically Aaron Henry. So that after the game, there was a tweet that goes they're talking about, there was just Bingham and Henry, a couple other guys standing around, and Henry's telling all the guys, this was for all, this is from all of us did this, right? All the team did this, and this late in the season with every game being a must win, to see these guys there's celebrations where you can tell guys are happy for themselves, and everyone looked like we're on the same page. And Henry was leading that. That's leadership. That's something we've been talking about is missing. And he's been walking the walk, talking the talk the past couple of games. He's been doing stellar. And the reason why I wanted to piggyback off your point is because of how he and to a lesser extent Joshua Lankford play. But I'll stick on Henry. Henry, the reason why the mid-range game is important is because of this. Henry lately has been shooting three better, but watch what he does with the ball, right? If he's not going to shoot it, he'll dribble, pull up, shoot. And and here's what that does.
And he's not rushing it anymore. Did you see how patient he was against Penn State?
Hold on. Let me finish this one point because it's gonna really hit home what you just said about the mid-range game. He dribbles, pulls up, shoots, and he's been making those, right? What that does is it makes the ref have to pay attention to the defender who's defending Henry, because in his mind, he's going to be thinking Henry's just doing mid-range. But now Henry hesitates, and then he goes through his dude and gets contact. Now, as opposed to we've seen it, refs have been real quick to call charges. Now in their mind, it can't be in charge, because that dude wasn't in his spot because Henry's been doing pull-up twos, or he's been hesitating, or he hasn't been attacking the lane. It makes it so the ref has to be honest in who he's calling his fouls on.
There's a lot of good things. A lot of the good things are coming out of that Henry action. Ball fake into the lane and ball fake step through. He's strong enough to play that old man game a little bit. And, just patient in there, a different type of patience. Again, we don't get a chance to do a lot of follow-up questions, but I guarantee that's where Mike Garland is good. He'll take a guy and they'll self-scout and they'll look at film of a player and say, this is what you could do better. This is what you've been doing. Why don't you reimagine it this way? Aaron Henry was different in that game. Patience in the lane.
You see what I'm saying. It's exactly your point. If like everyone knows you're not supposed to foul a 3-point shooter. So that's why you see guys kind of give a little space, or they're hesitant on putting their hands in a 3-point shooter because that's 3 free throws. Or, they don't want to get dunked on some off the way. But when you're in no man's land, when you're in the mid-range, like, getting fouls, like I bet you if I pulled up the statistics of it, it's easier to get fouls in the mid-range than it is in probably any other place outside of actually getting hit while dunking the ball. Because, like you said, there's so many options once you get in the middle of the floor that the ref is going to just the whistle for the offensive player is more in their favor, because the ref's like, he had all these choices and you decided to foul him.
Referees, man, I don't know how to play the referees. That stuff just gets so random sometimes.
I'm just saying. If you look at it, here's a better example with Malik Hall. Malik Hall last game was just, he was scoring he was taking damage. Like I feel like he must have like a super high pain threshold, because he just throws his body to people. And it's like you see he's in the middle often. Like whenever they're running the offense, you don't really see Henry like by the basket unless he's getting a rebound, right? Unless he's going up for a rebound, because he stays in the middle. He passes out. He tries to run the offense that way. And when he gets the ball, he's like, well, I got to make a decision. He takes that one dribble and goes up for it. He's normally in the position to either do a pull-up or he's trying to go for the dunk. But he doesn't try to go through his man. He's like the moment that he senses the contact, he just flings the ball up and he tries to go for it. It's not a bad shot. Like, he still squares his body, but he makes it known with the embellishment of how he moves his body that you got to call this, ref. He's like, if it doesn't go in, it's because of this guy, because I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do to be in position. And he's been getting to the line a lot. Bingham, Hall, Henry, they all in different ways have used a mid-range game, because Bingham's not backing people down. Bingham doesn't score inside the paint unless he's dunking. Like you saw, he does his spin move jumper, which actually goes in about half the time.
Turnaround jumper.
You see Hall. Yeah, you see Hall, who's trying to dunk into the lane and dunk. If he's not dunking, he's pulling up. And you see Henry. Henry has a lot more moves than those two, but the mid-range game has actually made up for our lack of assists this year in offense, because of all the, like you said, all the options you have once you're in the middle of the floor.
I think the post-up game is going to come with Bingham. Early in the season, you saw that turnaround jumper. I think you might see them. Michigan State likes to go inside early in the game, like first possession of the game, second possession of the game. They script inside post feed, go to work. It might be Hauser. Hauser's not starting anymore. Would not surprise me if the very first game against Iowa, they go down low to Bingham for a turnaround jumper, some sort of post move. That part of his game is going to come too. You'll see it.
If Bingham does an up and under move, I might black out. Like if he
someday
gets that footwork.
I've not seen that yet. Maybe he's got it. I'm not able to go to practice this year for obvious reasons. I wish I could have, because sometimes you'll see things in practice that don't show themselves in games until later. And sometimes I'll let people know when something's coming, and then it'll show up, and I'll tweet and I'll say that's what I was talking about. But Bingham's still working. He's still working.
I would, dude. I'd wager that he gets to the line 6 times a game if he had an up and under move, because he's so skinny and has so much length. People are going to foul him on accident because he has so much body to have contact with.
There's some awkwardness. There's some effective awkwardness to that if he gets rolling, where that can be.
Yeah, man.
And Michigan State fed that, against Nebraska, everything was outside in, and they went against Penn State. It made more of a concerted effort to feed the post, and a lot of those post feeds were to Aaron Henry. Sometimes on that diamond set where he posts up, and other ways. But a lot of the post action was going through Henry, but they were making more of a concerted effort to hit the post. I thought that was good. It's not like they've got a Kevin McHale down low, but you need some balance, especially the way Michigan State tries to structure things, especially this year where they're not getting anything out of transition yet. They might get transition against Iowa. They felt they could run against Iowa the first time, and you saw them run against Iowa in the first 15 minutes of that game in Iowa City, and it came out of nowhere, and they've not been able to run since. Weren't able to run before that, but they thought they could run against Iowa for whatever reason. Iowa kind of invites the run game, the transition game, because they want to run. Sometimes running teams will let you run a little bit. Iowa's been trying to figure out defense for 10 years. It's not working for them. Good team, but not a championship team because of that. But Michigan State thought they could run last time, and they did, and it worked. Then Izzo thought, foul trouble and the whistles kind of hurt the flow of the game. And he felt that Michigan State shot well early in that game because they were able to get out in transition. But he thought that Iowa got to the point where anytime they drove, it was a whistle. And rather than a missed shot chance to run, it was foul going to the free throw line. And he thought that messed up their Michigan State's run game. It will be interesting to see if Michigan State can harness that run game again, this time in the rematch on Saturday.
All right, this is my last thing I'm gonna say to them. I gotta go. I'm gonna make a prediction.
Yeah.
If Gabe Brown has a good game Sunday, we win.
If he does what? I lost you. If he does what?
If Gabe Brown has a good game Sunday, we win.
Well, that's an X factor. That's one of many X factors that if things go well for Michigan State, it helps. I think, and that would be very helpful. And I was encouraged by the way he played against Nebraska, and I thought that might be a good jumping off point for him, but it didn't follow up. So he's got to, he's their best percentage-wise three-point shooter, and he goes out there, and I understand as a kid what he's thinking. He's thinking, I only played against, in the back of his mind, he might not be saying this, but subconsciously he might be saying, I only played 6 minutes against Purdue. I don't know how many minutes I'm going to play today. So if I get a shot opening, I'm taking it, right? There's so many players in the playing group and such limited playing time that when you get a chance, sometimes they can foul up your discretion a little bit. Sometimes the shot selection can go south. And, he was hot from three-point range early in the season, so he believes he can make that. And for good reason. I think he could become that player at some point. But again, I get back to I have trouble understanding the difference between a good shot and a bad shot. Now, when he was taking those two shots against Penn State, I'm like, ooh, that's a tough shot. Then he missed it. Then he caught some. But I agree, if he has a good game, that means a lot. I'll say this also. I thought Josh Lankford was getting ready to tap into a level of consistent effectiveness. We all know what he's been through for 2 years, and then had the COVID situation, came back, and they ran him into the ground those 3 games when they first came back from COVID, 3 games in 6 days, playing 30-plus minutes against Rutgers, Ohio State, Iowa. Not in the best shape, gutted it out, tried his best, came back, took a day off, got into a little bit of a routine, played really well against Nebraska. His best game since 2018. And I'm like, okay, this could be the Joshua Lankford that I didn't think they would have last summer or maybe ever again. But if he can become that 40% three-point shooter scoring 15 a game, I think he might be ready to do this. But then he came out against Penn State and was off the mark again. This team, in order to become a team that might be able to make a run to get back in the NCAA tournament talk, into the bubble area, they need Lankford to be consistent, obviously. He's got the ability to be a good player, sometimes sending the offense through him, sometimes being a guy spotting up on the weak side where it comes to him when the initial action is covered. But, he was up and down against Nebraska and Penn State. You say Gabe Brown, if he has a good game, they'll win? Probably right. I'm saying the guy they need to be good night in and night out from now on is Joshua Lankford. Aaron Henry too, but Lankford needs to be double Batman there. Not a Batman and a Robin, but a double Batman. The other thing is Foster Loyer. He's been starting, playing more minutes. He was on pace to play more minutes in the first half than he's ever played before against Penn State. They've just kind of settled on that. And the offense, it's at least, they had all those turnovers against Nebraska, but it ran a little bit better against Penn State, and Penn State played some pressure defense. I'm not saying he's great, but the offense had some staples to it. It had a little bit of rhythm and continuity to it. The transition game's not there yet, but here's the deal. It looks like they're settling on him to be the point guard. We wrote about this, talked about it in the VCast. At the end of the game, last 5 minutes, it might be a situation Izzo's never had before. This is my starter point guard, play a little bit in the second half, but at crunch time, maybe he comes out. And Aaron Henry, maybe it goes through him as a point man for the last 5 minutes of a game. That's the way they finished the Penn State game, for better or worse. It wasn't that well oiled. It wasn't ironed out that well, but that might be the way that they attack things. Loyer starts, gets more minutes than anyone else at point guard, but at the end, Rocket Watts is on the court for defense, but then on offense, it might be Rocket Watts a little bit, but it's going to be going through Henry to be the key decision maker. I'm not saying Aaron Henry is Johnny Unitas or Tom Brady when it comes to decision making, because once or twice a game, he'll throw a Nolan Ryan wild pitch somewhere off the backboard or whatever. Maybe he can improve on that a little bit. But Loyer, if he's going to play, and he's going to give up some stuff on defense because of who he is. He's trying. He's in the scouting report. He's doing the film study, but he's still Foster Lawyer on defense, right? And if he's going to be giving up some points here and running the offense, he has got to be the 44% three-point shoot version of Foster Lawyer. He's been cold from the perimeter the last couple of games. If he's not making shots from three-point range, then it's like you kind of have to have that if you're going to be paying the fiddler on defense. So you say Gabe Brown, I acknowledge that and I respect that. I think that Lankford and Lawyer, since they're going with Lawyer, have got to be top versions of themselves to give them that perimeter shooting, because they're two guys that can provide it. And those are big ifs, but there's a chance that mixture, if it's hitting well and in a rhythm and it feeds off defense, rebounding, maybe some run game. Rebounding hasn't been that great, but maybe they can become a team once again that is difficult to beat. I'm not saying they'll go 9-0, but just they were easy to beat at different junctures this year. Maybe that's behind them right now, even though there's some really tough games coming up. Anything else, Cali Spartan?
See you, Jim.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Yep, sir.
All right, there he goes. I appreciate the phone call. We weren't planning to take phone calls. That's why I had all these questions here for the mailbag. Cali Spartan had the number. He called. I'll leave the number up, I guess. But first, actually, I'm gonna get to a couple of these calls, or some of these other questions. Real quickly, I want to say thank you to Jim Reynolds with that super chat personal sponsorship. Really appreciate that, Jim Reynolds. In the tip jar on a Thursday night in East Lansing. Where was... I say this all the time, but what was the hot place to be on Thursday nights? Back in my day, it was Dooley's. Yeah. I had season tickets at Dooley's a couple of years. And then it became Classic Rock Night on Thursday nights, circa 1993, I think it was.
Call from
Greg.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Hey, Greg. Hey, Greg. Welcome to the show. Welcome to SpartanMag Live. What's going on?
Hey, Jim. I think I called in the last time we had our call-ins. I think it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I talked to you. Yeah, I had you saved here as a good caller. People are wondering if I didn't screen that properly. I recognize the number, and it's all good. What's going on? What's on your mind?
Oh, not much, man. Hey, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Talking some basketball. Michigan State fans, there's a lot of anxiety out there, a lot of angst, and everybody in a time like this, they remember how much they love the NCAA tournament.
No.
They love the NCAA tournament. It's been a part of Michigan State's fans' lives for nearly a quarter century, every single year, and now there's a chance it might be taken away from you, and it makes you appreciate it even more and want it even more, right? Maybe that's good. Maybe they'll get back, and if so, we'll have some champagne here on the air one night. But what's on your mind?
Well, I just kind of I know last time we just talked about how players are doing, and we'll continue on that, follow up on that, but I also was really intrigued. I want to discuss a little bit about the recruits coming in, because obviously, while we're struggling right now, I mean, the recruiting is as good as it's ever been, frankly. I mean, we can agree on that, I think.
Well, as good as it's ever been, that's debatable. It's good. There have been some other years when it's been real good also, but, in terms of, what's coming in with Jaden Akins and, if players reclassify Amani Bates and so forth, yeah, there's
right.
Not been a lot of guys that have come down the pike like Amani Bates if they can go ahead and get that one squared away.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, you know what? I suppose I don't think we can say right now it's the best we've had, but I know it's very good. I think we know that. Right?
Yes. And coming in next year, you've got Jaden Akins, and Paul Konradek did a great job with a great story at SpartanMag.com with an update about Jaden Akins and how he's doing over at Sunrise Christian Academy in Kansas. Go to SpartanMag.com, check out that story. And also Max Christie off to a good start in Rolling Meadows, Illinois. had big numbers. Illinois high school basketball got off to a start this week. Saw some video of him, and he looks like he's added some good weight since last year. And usually we see these guys in the summer. Didn't see him this summer. Haven't seen him since last March. So Christie looks stronger. And Pierre Brooks from Detroit had a big game his first night out. What he put up, you may have seen it. He was over 30 and had a bunch of rebounds and assists, all kinds of numbers. So those three guys looking good.
Stop.
They're looking good. But
I want.
Go ahead.
I want to talk a little bit about Max Christie a little bit. I'm not sure we talked about him before last time. I mean, Max Christie, he's so far, this is right now since Amoni Bates hasn't reclassed, if he does or not. Max Christie is the most talented player we're getting in next season. So, I haven't seen him play that much, but, he's a 5-star. I think he's in the 247 composite. He's like 940, something like that. So he's the most talented player as of right now that we have coming in. So what do you expect him to bring once he arrives in East Lansing next season?
Virtuoso talent as a wing guard with a lot of good skills, athleticism, wiry strength, inside, off the dribble, to the rim is pretty good. But a guy that he's listed at about 6'6". He's listed at 6'6", 185. I'll bet he's up to about over 190 now. Rivals.com has him ranked number 22 in the country. So he's going to be...
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's going to be in consideration for McDonald's All-America candidacy, I would imagine. So, that type of skill they're going to need. In the meantime, you don't quit on Gabe Brown,
Absolutely not. He's very, very good.
So
he's a good leader.
And he's got things. We're talking about Gabe Brown and the medium range shot he had against Nebraska. I thought that was good for him. I was worried about him becoming only a transition player and satellite shooter, but I like to see him with that pull up jumper he had against Nebraska.
Absolutely. No, Gabe Brown, he looked really good. I think, especially next season, I'm very excited personally to see a senior Gabe Brown because, I think the leadership, and I think in his senior year, if he continues to develop and gain confidence in these next few games here, honestly, next season I could see him averaging 12, 15 points a game or more next season in his senior year.
I think he could. He just needs to get the shots, and somebody's got to take the shots. Now, everybody can't average 12 a game, obviously, because there's only one basketball and so an X number of possessions in a game and X number of shots. But he's capable of doing that for somebody, including Michigan
Absolutely.
State.
And then another person you need to talk about whether or not he stays is Aaron Henry, because obviously right now I think he needs to work on, his consistency. Sometimes he can be a little bit inconsistent, but yes. He's probably their best player that they have right now. I think we could agree on that.
Yes, he is. And he's had some good moments, and he was really good in a lot of ways against Penn State, that's for sure. And like I said earlier, showed some new patience. You're seeing new layers to his game as he becomes more mature. And yeah, you and I can look at it and say he's got things he needs to work on, but this is a guy that almost turned pro after last year. So he came back this year expecting that this was definitely his last year. So he has a high opinion of his game, and a lot of people think maybe he has not played well enough to merit going pro early, but he's definitely planning to do that. And as Michigan State tries to put together plans to manage the roster, as it's called these days, roster management, I'm sure they're anticipating that Aaron Henry's going to leave, because they were sweating bullets last year whether he was going to leave or not. I don't think they want to go through that again. I think they pretty much assume that he's going to be gone, for better or worse for him.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think Aaron Henry, he was supposed to leave next season. Another thing you have to remember about Aaron Henry is he came in, I think it was the 2018-19 season. He came in as a 3-star recruit. And really, that just shows how much he's improved and what he's capable of talent-wise. And, he's a great defensive player. And just how much Izzo developed him. He went from a 3-star recruit to being possibly an NBA draft in his sophomore year. And that's just really incredible to me, the level of development that Henry has had over these past couple of years.
And when Henry came in, he was highly recommended by Gary Harris. And a lot of us thought that he was an underrated 3-star. So the career he's had, I don't think it's a big surprise. He he played a lot as a freshman because of some injuries, and of course Izzo famously challenged him in that Bradley game in the NCAA tournament. But I think he's done well. He's not had, that Sean Respert, Steve Smith, Scott Skiles, Draymond Green type of ascension from wherever to stratosphere. But he's been good. He's been solid. He's not quite taking that next level that I think coaches think that he could take. And could he still do it here down the stretch? It's possible. But I think what we've seen with Henry in a lot of ways is what you're going to get. The three-point shooting seems to be leveling out a little bit better, a little more consistent there. But I'll say it again. I thought that his patience with some of the pump fakes, getting into the lane and going to work was really a step in the right direction. And good for him and good for this team. And like Kelly Spartan said, there was some leadership on his behalf in the huddle. And to Aaron Henry's credit, he's always stepped forward when they've lost games and said, it's on him, it's on me, it's my fault, it's got to get fixed, starts with me. He's a stand-up guy, and he's a quality person.
It absolutely. I mean, the way he steps up as a leader and his leadership, and he puts the team first, is just incredible. And I mean, I think it's definitely possible. It's probably pretty likely that he does enter the NBA draft this year. But I mean, if he doesn't, and if he ends up deciding to stay for his senior year, which is possible, I mean, honestly, I think it's almost just as exciting or more exciting than our recruiting, even with Amoni Bates next season, to having a senior Aaron Henry possibility. I mean, I could see him in his senior year averaging 25 points a game, 25 points.
What, who?
I mean, I think he would be.
Aaron Henry?
Aaron Henry.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah, senior.
No, 25 doesn't happen in this program.
Well, I mean, we had Josh Lankford. He when he was in his prime, like in the 220. What was it?
16?
When he was in his prime,
He's averaging about 15 or so. 15's a lot in this system.
About that.
Yeah.
He averaged what, 20 points a game? Is it 15, something like that?
Yeah, about
prime,
15
Lankford?
or 16. Joshua Lankford?
15 or 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lankford.
I think he was averaging 15 before he got hurt in 2018, I think.
Yeah, something like, yeah. And I think with Henry, I mean, defensively, I think he would be phenomenal, too, in his senior year. And, I mean, what do you think the possibility is for Aaron Henry staying for his senior year?
I don't think it's very good for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I think he came back with the idea he was going to go pro, and that's what he's been gearing toward, and I think that's what they're expecting. Like I said, you can argue that it has not played itself out in that direction in that category this season, but I'm not sure it did last year either, and he almost went pro last year.
Right. I think, I think that's just unbelievable that he almost went pro last year. And I think what we bring into with Christie and Akins, I mean, I think that'll be really something too. And then if Amoni Bates reclassifies, that would be, the most interesting thing to see what, he would bring in. I mean, he's not, I haven't, again, with Bates, I haven't watched a lot of videos on his game, but I mean, obviously he's a super talent, and I mean, he's on defense, he is pretty raw from what I've read, from what I've heard. His defensive game needs a little bit of work, but he's a super talent offensively, and I think that he could definitely take the starting role at the 3 if he came in next season, wouldn't you think? I mean,
Bates,
you think
if he goes, if Bates goes, if he plays next year, he will not be going to college to be coming off the bench.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he would. So you would expect Bates to take the starting at the 3 over Gabe Brown next season?
Yeah. I have trouble looking that far ahead to figure out how that all pieces together. I'm still trying to figure out how this team is going to make it. Is what's going to happen with this team. Anyway, hey, I'll let you go. I'm going to get into some other thoughts. I appreciate you calling in. Anything else? And
no, that's about it.
And
just
your name?
what's
your name again? What's your name? Is it Greg? What is your name?
Yes.
Greg. Where are you calling from?
Greg. Calling from San Bernardino.
San Bernardino, California. All right, Greg. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting SpartanMag.com. Really appreciate it, Greg. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care. There goes Greg. Appreciate him calling in. Now, let me get back to some of these mailbag questions. Ben from Spring Arbor said, actually it was Alex from Los Angeles, says, are you hearing anything on basketball reclassifications with Enoch or Imani Bates, Enoch Boachi, Canadian kid. Not hearing anything about Boakye, and I'm not sure it'd be in his best interest right now because Michigan State's got a little bit of a log jam with big men, and they're going to want to get some things from Bingham next year and Matty Sissoko. So Boakye, I've not heard anything. Amani Bates, everything's pretty close to the vest over there. Everything's really close to the vest. It's hard to find out what's going on there. I assume he's going to reclassify. I think he wants to, and be done with basketball this spring. Now, does he fashion some sort of pro career from that jumping off point or what? I'm not sure. All right. Ben from Spring Arbor says, between Bingham and Lawyer, which often maligned starter is more important for the success of this team? We've already talked a lot about Bingham and a little bit about Lawyer. We'll talk some football here in a minute, but I want to go over a little film study here. We did this a little bit a minute ago when Callie Spartan was on. Now, here's early in the game, Malik Hall. They did a lot of this, and I wonder if they planned to do this. Watch the ball fake. This is Bob Knight type stuff. Ball fake and drive. I mean, you could watch a lot of it. There were more ball fakes, and they were well done. There were more ball fakes in this game than you'd seen in probably the previous 10 games from Michigan State. Look at the defender, off balance, because there's no scouting report that Malik Hall's going to do this. Shot fake, goes around him, and one. Good start from Malik Hall, his first start of the season. Good start for him. Hey, give us a thumbs up out there. See me over here in the corner. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Now let's take another look here. What do we have here? We got ball screen. Let's go through all these highlights. Oh, Hauser's going to take it all the way himself on this one, right? Hauser was just coming off the bench, comfortable doing it, had a big game, looked more like a player. Izzo said he saw him driving the first time he got his hands on the ball, and Izzo's quote was, "Okay, here we go. We got Joey Hauser, a different version of Joey Hauser. Got that back in this game, and it helped." What do we have here? Is this Henry? Henry refusing a ball screen. He got bailed out there a little bit. Henry, he'll throw some wild pitches. This works out, but leaving his feet, you've got ball screen. Shot clock must have been down. We're going to ball screen. He leaves his feet blindly and gets it to him. And Hauser, ball fake. And then he does some sort of 1975 John Havlicek play. That works. What do we have here? You have Lawyer. Now here's the diamond set. See him shaped in a diamond here? Similar to a single double, but in this case, they'll run this diamond a lot to get the ball in the wing and to post up Henry. And you see Henry setting a down screen here. Henry's going to button hook and post up. Defender has to go out on Hauser because he's a shooting threat. That diamond set is done to post up Henry a lot. And if a guard's guarding him, good pass by Hauser here to steer him to where there was no resistance. And a ball fake again. Patient in there. Do you mind if we look at some film here? What do we have here? Now here's this dribble handoff stuff that Penn State does. Faking a handoff and then a dribble handoff. It's hard to guard. And Gabe Brown did a pretty good job here. Contested okay, but it goes in. But the dribble handoff stuff that they do when they go 5 out, Penn State 5 out, nobody in, tricky. Refusing a ball screen here with Lawyer. This is just old-fashioned screen roll replace. This is at the end of the half. It's an old play. Ball screen from Bingham. And so right now you've got Joey Hauser down on the block. He's going to pop out for a three-pointer. This is where it's important to have a stretch four. This is a simple play, but this is all about the stretch four. So the screen by Bingham is not great, but you have to guard the roll. Even though Michigan State does not run the roll a lot with Bingham, if that's Tillman, you have to roll with him. And then you've got Kenny Goins popping out for a three-pointer. But you see the help has to go with the roll man. And if Michigan State can get better delivering that roll pass, and Lawyer's got to get better with the pocket pass, Lawyer's got to get better as a passer. For a little dude like that, got to be better. He's getting better. He's not been a great passer in the past. In fact, I'd say he's been kind of a mediocre passer, but he's been a little better as a passer in the last month or so. Screen roll replace. The replace man is Hauser, replacing the area where the ball screen took place. There's the replace man, whether it's A.J. Granger or Adrian Payne or Kenny Goins or Goran Sutan. When Michigan State's made deep runs at the tournament, they've had the screen roll replace man, and there it is on the replace. And Hauser, that's what they brought him in to do. All right, now here's the offshoot of this. Now you've got high screen again. Bingham diving down there. Now the 4-man, Malik Hall is in the corner. They're running replace action for Lankford. You see you see Lankford down in the block. So now at Michigan State, I've never seen them run this tangent off of this play. I've never seen them do this. So it looks like it's going to be screen roll replaced for Lankford popping out for that three-pointer like Hauser a minute ago. But instead of Bingham rolling and being a screen roll for a pass, Bingham goes down and sets a down screen, and it becomes a curl in the lane. So watch Lankford now. He's underneath the rim. He's not going to come out for replace action. He's going to get that and curl right there. The Calbert Chaney style. And the dump down, dunk. That was the first or second possession of the second half, and it was outstanding. I've been charting Michigan State basketball for 25 years. I know most of what they do. I've not seen them do this, and it was outstanding. Curl, dump down, Tom Izzo, excellent. What do we have here? Got a handoff with Hogard. Back cut. I had some thoughts about this. I can't remember what it was. What was it? I think the roll is the first option here to Marble, but Marble and Hogard, they defended it pretty well. Hogard, and that's where the team, the youth on the team, and the lack of familiarity, trying to deliver a pocket pass there. It is covered, and they're out on Hauser because he's a threat. Lankford's open in the other corner, but it's hard to get it over there because of the trees. Now here you're denying a passing lane. Penn State, the guy in the corner is denying Aaron Henry, and Hogard, to his credit, makes a good read here. Instead of throwing it away for a turnover for a touchdown, and this is precisely the way Michigan State does not like to play defense. Hey, every team's got to play defense, whatever their program says to play it. You'll rarely see Michigan State get in a passing lane like this. They'd rather stay back, block elbow coverage. You can call it nail coverage. You can call it pack line, whatever it is. But Penn State making an overzealous defensive play into the denying the passing lane. And 3-4 weeks ago, maybe even 2 weeks ago, well, they were in shutdown 3 weeks ago. But Michigan State's had trouble with this type of pressure defense. And it was good to go against a pressure defense and be able to undress it like this. Michigan State's best teams have had these pressure release plays like this. They've been unable to execute these a whole lot this year. Executed this one. Hogard, not been around long, not made a lot of great passes. Made a good decision there, a good read. Got out of jail. Nice bag cut. Dunk. What else we got here? Okay, now this is when Michigan State was starting to get driven a little bit. So they started driving against the four. So, Hauser does a few things well, but playing against a guard on a drive is not one of them. Gives up some penetration and a kick. Now, Hogard here kind of gets lost a little bit. Hogard's playing some freshman defense. See where Hogard is? Top of the key. He's one step off the line of the ball, which is where he should be. One step, he's off the line and up the line. 1/3, 2/3, whatever you want to call it for weak side defense. His man gets behind. Now so they switch it. That's fine. Now he loses. Hogard right here, freshman mistake, loses. See, now he should be about where the G is in the Big Ten. See the BIG, the notorious BIG, by the free throw line in the paint. Lets up for just a moment. Number 3's got his hand up because Hogard is kind of taking a 1-second vacation. He loses focus for a second. He switches. Now he's no longer off the line and up the line. Now he's on the wrong side of the line. The line being the line between the ball and the man he's covering. If I had a telestrator here, I'd say what that is. So now his shoulders are turned. Hogard, his back is to the man he's covering. He buys a ticket. He's spectating. Nothing against him. Good kid. He's learning. But he can't buy a ticket. Now it's too late. Now he's like, oh, crap. That's all it takes at this level. Rushes out, gets a hand up a little bit, but the shot opening was there. So that's not going to look good in the film study for Michigan State. I have Hauser driving, looking for a hammer pass. It's covered. Again, patient in the lane. He was like a new player in the lane with that stuff. What is this? All right, so good job by Hall here with the dig. But now here's Lawyer. Here's where Lawyer starts getting in trouble with defense. So Lawyer, he's guarding the guy going to the corner. side ball screen and slip, hard to cover. So Lankford is getting compromised here. That's the way it is. That's why he set the screen. So hedge help by Zach Kithier, hedge help, but he still gets a little bit of a drive. So that's why you need Hall to dig, Hall digs, and Lawyer's in the vicinity too. If you get the side ball screen action like that, you're going to need some of that help. So Lawyer is in the middle to help. This is where Lawyer, if that's not Lawyer, if that's Denzel Valentine playing point guard instead, then this drive is a little bit more discouraged. But Lawyer does his job, goes for a rake, doesn't get it. But now that you did not get that rake, now your man's open in the corner, and Foster Loyer gets out to him, knew right where his man was, but he's 5'9", right? Again, if that's Denzel Valentine, that shot window is not up. I mean, Foster did everything correct. He was aware, knew right where his man was, recovered, but a dude still hits a three in his face because of the size situation. That's the way it's going to be. That was 9 minutes ago in the game. Now here's you've got Rocket Watts. Shot clock's going down. Rocket Watts trying to decide what's a good shot and what's a bad shot. He wants to be a good player, wants to do the right thing. Shot clock's going down. Now this is interesting. The Penn State guys playing him, trying to force him to go right. Rocket is a right-handed guy, and whatever their scouting report is for Penn State, they're making Rocket go to the right. Rocket likes to go to the left for the pull-up. A lot of you guys that have played, for whatever reason, I don't understand the physics behind it. And I was the same way. If you go cross over to the left, for some reason it's easier to jump into your shot going right to left, even a right-handed guy going left. They are making him go left. Making him go right. He still wants to go left. He still wants to go left, gets shut down. And now the shot clock's down. Now he's got to go over here to Aaron. He's got to make something up. And I'm not broke that guy's ankles, but they go up by 6 here, and every point they needed, this one rolls in. I'm not sure they win the game without that one because it was starting to get away from them there a little bit. But Rocket, I mean, they're making him go to the right. That was interesting. All right, now you're back to this dribble handoff, 5 out stuff. Hard to guard some of that stuff. 5 out. When I say 5 out, there's no post up. You got 5 people around the perimeter. And Malik Hall is guarding the shooter, goes under the dribble handoff. That's tough, but I like Bingham here. He's in the vicinity. They had not. Sometimes Michigan State might change this, and they might send Malik Hall over that dribble handoff. They don't usually do that with big men, though, and he's a 4-man. Usually you go underneath it. But I like Bingham here. His knees are bent. He's aware. He's going to tag on that if he has to, but the guy makes a shot. I think, do we have one more with Lawyer? So Lawyer's, all right. See, Bingham again. Hedge, help, turns his hips. Now you got to switch. And Bingham's showing here that he's comfortable switching onto a point guard. Did I miss it? Oh, I missed a couple plays. This didn't happen in rehearsal. All right. So ball screen, Bingham. Knees are bent. Impacts the guy. But the point guard drives anyway. Lawyer got screened right now. So Bingham moves his feet, flips his hips, guards him. Problem is that now it's a straight switch. Now you've got Lawyer guard number 21, Harar, or whatever his name was. It's going to end up being a putback. But Bingham guarding a point guard, okay, kind of deny and discourages a shot. You can work with that development from Bingham. Now they're trying to, Lawyer's trying to box this guy out. Just a high feed, easy 2. Now, again, if that's Denzel Valentine or a bigger point guard, maybe even Travis Walton, maybe he can withstand that, but it's just one of the things. Now, can Aaron Henry chuck that guy a little bit and put an elbow into him and help Lawyer in that situation? Maybe so. Henry at that point could have put an elbow in his armpit, then maybe number 12 scores. But it's just one of those things with Lawyer. And you're going to have those problems with Lawyer. This is 7 minutes to go. They cut it to 1. But if you're going to have those defensive liability issues with Lawyer, he is what he is, nothing against him, then you must have 40+% three-point shooting from him to offset it at the other end. And, they're not well-stocked at point guard. I think they can play winning basketball. I'm not saying they're a Final Four team. They're not even an NCAA tournament team yet. But I think they can function with Lawyer running the thing. But he's got to be his full self. All right, so now they're getting driven. Now, Was this off an inbound play? No. So here's Hauser again, a 4-man getting driven again. So they've got Hauser and Bingham out. They're starting to drive on the 4-man. Shortly after this, Michigan State decided to go small because they're starting to go 5 out, small. So Michigan State came back and went with Gabe Brown at the 4. It was hard to ascertain who was at the 4, whether it was Henry or Brown. Probably Henry. Yeah, Henry's at the 4. So now they've gone small. Hauser's the 5, Henry's the 4. You got Lankford out there with Gabe Brown. And it's a 2-point game with 5 minutes to go. They run that diagonal high screen. Here's Aaron Henry at the free throw line. Diagonal back screen. Posting up again. And Penn State doesn't, I hadn't seen that play a whole lot. Penn State may not have seen it on film either. Ends up with an error in coverage for Penn State. Henry's more open than he realized, but again, goes up. They almost stop, but he turns it into a difficult shot. Would have had an easier shot if he'd went straight to it, but he didn't know. If he went straight to a drop step, didn't know he's that open. All right, here you go with the 5 out again. Dribble handoff. And now Lawyer's getting driven. So it's shortly after, there's 4 minutes to go now. Michigan State's down 2. Now after that, Lawyer came out of the game. Now they're like, okay, we got to finish this game with Aaron Henry. We got Watts on defense because he's your best defensive point guard, but the offense is going through Henry. 3 minutes to go. They run a tandem backcourt here. Tandem backcourt. It's not a point guard set. It's a tandem backcourt. 2 backcourt members. Back in the 1970s, everything was 2 backcourts. Point guards didn't really come into vogue until like late 70s. So tandem backcourt, 2 in the backcourt. You got number 2 Watts and you got Lankford over there. Tandem backcourt. They feed top of the key. This is part of their guards through series. You've seen Michigan State do this forever, dating back to Tom Izzo or to Judd Heathcote and some Heathcote teams. Well, you know, W. Smith used to do this. Munson used to do this at Gonzaga. So just sometimes it's guards through and they crisscross and pop out on opposite sides. This time they just go to the corners. It's a clear out for Henry. So they don't have a point guard on the court. 3 minutes to go. This is late game script. They're giving it top of the key, Henry, and he's just going to ball in his hands and he's just going to go make a play. Trying to. So in this situation, the shot goes up. Lankford recognizes the people are going to the boards. Lankford rotates back to the rim or back to the backcourt. But I mentioned this in the .comp article. Watts, to his credit, breaking to the rim now, and you've got old-fashioned 4 to the boards here. And you've got a guard getting a tip in, Charlie Bell style. 4 white shirts at the rim, 4 to the boards, and that was Michigan State's last field goal. And needed it. Cut it to 58-56, 4 to the boards, tip in by a guard. What do you have here? Pulling up. That was the end of the game. So I think we went through everything. Barely eked it out. But that's a little film room. I don't know if you like that or not. If you don't like it, I don't care. Yeah, I do. I think we might have lost some viewers while we're doing that, but whatever. Let's go back. I'm going to go over here to the chat area in a moment. But actually, let's go to the chat area now. We might be running out of time. We had some good questions over there, and I only got through 3 of them. There's some questions about offensive line recruiting. We might get into that maybe next time. I'll save that question. Yeah, we got some pretty good questions here. We'll get into those next time. And I've got some writing to do too. So let's go over here to the chat area. We'll wrap it up. We're not going to go 2 hours tonight. Matthew Johnson's in the starting 5. I don't know if I'll go through the whole list. I might go through halfway, then maybe go back to the mailbag in a moment. Kenneth Roberts, Matthew Johnson, starting 5. Brian V. and John G. Brian V., John G., and Detroit Spartan. So I think our starting 5. Got Matthew Johnson running the point this time. Kenneth Roberts down low. Brian V., he's a shooter. I can tell he's a shooter. Where's John G.? Power forward's John G. Might be John Garavaglia. We don't know. And the Detroit Spartan. Shooting guard. Party on, excellent, game on. That's what he says. Rob South says, what's up, fellas? Brad Fishenko says, checking in from Austin. Christian Maytai says, go green. Matye. It's probably Matye, right? Looks like he's on a golf course or something. Detroit Spartan says, you mean the pandemic had an impact on the season? Yes, it do. Cartero 917 says, hi. Do people still say hi? Old Tuck the Bell Cow. Between Fishenko and the Old Tuck, Detroit Spartan says, I want a background of last year's season finale versus OSU at the Breslin. You want the whole background, huh? What if we just do this? I don't know if I'm... Remember that? That was... look at those human beings at the game. Actual human beings. Kyle Arndt, senior day, Michigan State, hugging his brother. It's a great moment. My man Pete Secchi in the background. See him over there. Bless his heart. Long time ago. 11 months. But anyway... Detroit Spartan wanted to see some of this, so we're going to do it. And I'll let that run. And I'm going to answer some of these other questions. Keith Tunstall says, it's hard to evaluate offensive linemen. Yes, it is. We're talking earlier about who are the most difficult to evaluate. You're right. Offensive line, John L. Smith said it, and I've quoted him a number of times. By the way, look, Izzo choking up senior day. But watch my guy Holtman from Ohio State. He finally gets ticked off at this. Remember, Holtman's still new to the Big Ten. He's like, what is this Michigan State senior day garbage? Now, Izzo's going to look down. He's going to recognize it. Connor George checking out. So Connor George is working for Ishbia now? It's not a bad spot. But yeah, offensive line evaluation... John L. Smith used to talk. Look at Holtman there. Holtman's like, what is this? Get this garbage going. You see Holtman? Did you guys notice that? Where's Holtman at? Where's Holtman? Connor George taking his bows, well-deserved. Here's Holtman. He's like, come on, ref. What is this garbage? Sorry about that. He's got a good team this year, though. So, John L. Smith said offensive linemen are all projects to some point, and you're exactly right. And now Izzo's going to say, hey, let's Cassius Winston. Remember that guy? Did we get spoiled with Cassius Winston? I don't know. So, offensive lineman, you're evaluating 17-year-old. Look at Holtman. He's like, what is this? This is bull crap. Holtman's like, what is this? What is this? The Harlem Globetrotters? What is this? So, but John L. Smith used to talk about offensive linemen are all projects to some extent, and I would agree with that. And you're even more so now because you're evaluating 17-year-old guys trying to figure out what they're going to look like when they're 22. Now Izzo's going to say, hey, let's get it going. Right now Izzo's like relaxing. Now he realizes, oh wait, let's get this going. Get it going. Izzo's like, let's get it going. Show's over. Let's go. So he's not like sticking it to Holtman. He's like, and then he's like, man, now he feels bad for Holtman. I know Izzo. I know what he's thinking. A lot of you guys do. Been around him long enough. Anyway, that was a good time. I don't think. All right. Keith Tunstall says it's hard to. All right. Detroit Spartan says quarterback the easiest, offensive line the hardest. We went through that earlier. Spunky 181 says it's all about the feet. Detroit Spartan says the defense in general tends to be easier to evaluate, in my opinion. Keith Tunstall says it's hard to evaluate cornerbacks. Detroit Spartan says quarterbacks. Spunky 181 says, how do you judge the leadership skills of a quarterback? Man, I don't know. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Usually you see it. Usually there's an it factor. That's something Morris Watts really liked about Jeff Smoker, as a matter of fact. Thought he had an it factor, and Smoker did. Smoker was a good guy. Got caught up in some stuff because he was all things to all people. Good guy, good teammate, a lot of talent. Sad story in a lot of ways. He's doing fine now, I think. I haven't heard from him in a while, but I think so. Chris Trinham says South Philly has arrived. I agree on offensive line. CMU and Western Michigan always seem to hit on pro linemen every 2 to 3 years. Detroit Spartan says interview them, ask their coaches, teammates, etc. Talking about leadership at quarterbacks. All right, got the sound figured out here. Detroit Spartan says I learned a lot from Coach D about DBs. Never had a hard time scouting them. Coach D used to talk about ball judgment. That's something I like about with Terrell Henry, the guy that got a commitment from a week and a half ago. Deep ball judgment, excellent with Terrell Henry. Alex Calder says, when does the Ipsy prep season end? When could we expect an announcement from Imani Bates about potentially reclassifying? I think their season ends, late March. And I would expect around that time. And that I don't know, who knows what's going to happen there. There might be some soap operas in store there, not sure. Matthew Johnson says, there's a mental side of quarterbacks that is hard to evaluate in high school. Joe Burrow comes to mind, not the fastest, strongest arm, but he wills his team to win and compete. I agree with that. Keith Tunstall giving me guff about cheap equipment. I got you. All right. What else do we have here? I'm going to zip through this and wrap it up. Talk about Maxwell. Alex Calder, the last game posted on the website is February 20th for Imani Bates' team, all right? Let's go through some other questions here. Apparently Joe Boyster is working at a quarterback academy or something nowadays, says Chris Chynam. Spartan MD checks in and says, ladies and gentlemen of Sparta, Detroit Spartan says, yes, sir, I've known Joey since he was a young buck. Joey Boyster from the Flint area. Keith Tunstall says, there's Izzo. Izzo is all fired up. They're playing We Are the Champions right there. I can't play it now because this is being streamed on YouTube, and I'll get flagged if I play the music here. But this is We Are the Champions. It was being played right there. Keith Tunstall says, Izzo needs to play Maddie and Bingham together. So Keith Tunstall is looking for a Twin Towers type of thing. Don't see many teams playing Twin Towers anymore, Keith. I kind of went out with Melvin Turpin and Sam Bowie. Houston Cougars did a little bit, but no, Twin Towers is not functional these days. Angelo Gross, Harold Joyner enthusiast, is late. Chris Chynam says, of all things that have gone wrong in basketball, I feel like I need to drink when I see these turnovers. Each game, there have to be 3 or 4 that leave me in shock. Yes, I would recommend drinking to solve that. Angelo Gross enthusiast says Bingham impacts the game differently on defense. I would agree with that. The shooting and turnovers have been brutal, Chris Chynam says. Beyond MSU, college basketball has been very difficult to watch. I have no idea what this tournament will look like. I agree with that. And something about the tournament this year, or just college basketball in general, the teams that have survived all the stuff that's going on this year and that are doing well, it's teams that are experienced teams. Now, it's no secret in recent years that experienced teams have done well in the tournament. Virginia 2 years ago, Villanova the year before that. I think it was the year before that. And the axiom became get old and stay old. And some of those teams that have gotten old and stayed old, that's worked well in basketball in recent years, and it certainly has worked well this year with the COVID situation and teams in bubbles and dealing with that. The younger teams have not done well. Duke, Kentucky. Michigan State was young at point guard, maybe not a young team top to bottom, had their struggles. Michigan has done real well, and you look at Michigan, nice balance on that team, but 4 of their top 6 are seniors. 4 of their top 6. They bring the point guard in from Columbia, transfer. He's been excellent as a senior. Livers does not go pro. He's a senior. Stretch 4, excellent. Eli Brooks, very good defender, senior. Then the transfer they got from Wake Forest. Guy's shooting 40% from 3, muscular, mature dude. Your top 4 there. Then you throw in Wagner. He's an NBA player probably. I don't know who I'm forgetting. Oh, the big man, the freshman, the big man. He's surrounded by all that talent. He's going to work doing a good job. But 4 of the top 6 seniors, it's made a big impact with them. That's one of the reasons they're having a lot of success. But older teams around the country having success. Spartoons from Albion, Michigan says, I'm not going to go to that question. Hold on. There's an offensive line recruiting question. I might save that for next time. What do we have here? All right. WX Spartan from the banks of the Saginaw River says, which Michigan State team do you think had a better shot at a national championship if they did not lose the following games? He says the 2018 Michigan State basketball team that lost to Syracuse, or the 2013 Michigan State football team that lost to Notre Dame. The answer is the 2013 football team. Now, they had some tight games. Well, they won games double digit the rest of the season, including that was the team that won every game double digits in the Big Ten, first Big Ten team ever to do that, right? But if they'd have beaten Notre Dame, the national championship teams that year were Auburn and Florida State, and Mark D'Antonio always felt that his team could have beaten Florida State. I'm not sure about that. I think they could have competed with them. I think Stanford was as good as anybody. Stanford had beaten Oregon. The Stanford team the Michigan State team beat was very good. Michigan State was very good. That Notre Dame game with the pass interference penalties really turned that game upside down. It was a tight game anyway. And at that time, Michigan State had not figured out their total quarterback situation. If you remember, Connor Cook did not finish that game, right? Maxwell did. So Michigan State was still trying to figure themselves out. But if they had beaten Notre Dame and been 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, when you get that type of record on your back, that 6-0, 7-0, I'm telling you, it becomes harder and harder. Because the team you're playing, like the one time they were undefeated, went to Iowa City at like 7-0, 8-0. And Iowa was not very good that year. But you bring in that type of record to Iowa City, man, they circle the wagons, and you're taking on the whole program then. It's just teams get up for you differently when you're undefeated. And I saw that the two times that I've covered undefeated Michigan State teams that took undefeated records into October and so forth, you see opponents that are not that good really rise up because you get that whole 85-man army gunning for you, and then you're trying to protect something. It's like in 2015, Michigan State went to the college football playoff, but they went into Lincoln, Nebraska undefeated. They played a Nebraska team that was not that great, had a couple breaks go against them, whatever, lost the game. Shalik Calhoun with very passionate speech to his players after his teammates in the locker room after the game. Very upset with himself, upset with everybody that they allowed a team they should have been able to beat them on a day like that. But those are the landmines and obstacles when you take an undefeated record into October, into November. That's why I got a lot of respect for some of those teams that can pull it off, whether it be Clemson or Alabama and Ohio State in recent years. Hard to do. Of course, those teams are stacked with NFL talent up and down the roster. When you've got that helps. But the 2013 team, if they'd have beaten Notre Dame, I'm not sure that they would have survived a landmine somewhere along the line. They were probably closer to becoming a national championship team by the end of the year because of the one loss, just the way things reset a little bit. But the 2018 Michigan State basketball team against Syracuse, they won 30 games. I didn't like that team all year. Bridges, talented guy, but the self-scout, they turned that around a little bit late in the year, but they were trying to get him to the free throw line a lot, and he just always drove to the baseline and got cut off easily. They had trouble with Michigan for good reason all year. That team had some breaks in the Big Ten schedule. You look at some of their best wins that year, there were not a lot of great wins. And then they get in Syracuse and didn't have a zone offense. Well, they had a zone offense. And Izzo's always had a real good zone offense, but on that day, nothing was working. They lost to Syracuse, but if they would have beaten Syracuse, they would have been playing Duke in the Sweet 16, and they were not going to beat Duke. And Duke ended up losing to Kansas in the Elite Eight. You might remember with Michigan State, Duke, and Kansas in the same bracket. That was the bracket from hell that year. If Michigan State had found a way to beat Syracuse, they would not have gone. They would have lost in the Sweet 16. So between those two teams, you're asking which one would have had a better chance to win a national championship. It was the 2013 football team, even despite the landmines that would have come up later, because 2018 was not going to get it done. Back here to the chat area, and then we will call it a day. Spunky181 says, if Watts can't get going, it's just going to be tough. And Henry will have to score 20-plus points if we want any chance to win games. Well, Watts, Watts is trying to find his way around, and he's working through it. His defense is valuable, but man, against Nebraska, when he was trying to make some of those passes, it was just really harried. It was very haywire. It was not good, right? But can he get set up as a 2 guard, coming off down screen, catch and shoot. That'd be interesting to see that. I haven't seen much of that. Chris Trynham says, do all the basketball players get an extra year like in football? If they want, I'd love to get Gabe for an extra year. It's a great question. I think they do. It's a really good question, and I don't know for sure. But so, like, technically Joey Hauser's a junior right now because he redshirted 1 year at Marquette, then transferred. That's one of the reasons Izzo was so mad last year that he was not able to play because they're just going to lose that year. So does he get that extra year later? I don't know. Detroit Spartan says, I don't believe so. And I think, I've not heard that. I think I agree with what he says, that it's not like football where you get the extra year. And I don't know why it wouldn't be like football. Maybe because nobody in basketball opted out. In football, you had a lot more opt-outs. Basketball, there's no opt-outs. So I don't know. Spartan MD says, Gabe and Amani are buddies. No, yes, they are buddies. They are workout friends. They know each other well. Detroit Spartan says, unless the season gets shut down due to a pandemic, then it could change. Angelo Gross says, yes, Amani and Gabe are best friends. Cade Carmody says, can't wait for Amani. Let's beat Iowa this weekend, he says. Detroit Spartan says, we need Akins like yesterday. Akins is interesting. I mean, all kinds of great athleticism, good shooter, good defensive player. Does he have the ability to read the court and be a point guard, quarterback, run an offense? At some point, possibly, probably. But from day one, maybe not. Think about someone like Charlie Bell. As good as Charlie Bell was, became an NBA player. He was a point guard of the 2001 team that went to the Final Four. Marcus Taylor came off the bench, played some point guard also. In 2000 for the national championship game, and in 1999, Charlie Bell was the backup point guard. He started at 2 guard. He moved to the point when Cleves sat, and then he'd go sit and Cleves would take over the point. They'd play together at the beginning of the half and the end of the half and the beginning of the second half and at the end of the game. In between, they would trade off. Charlie Bell became a functional point guard. He was a lead guard. I mean, the offense was pretty, mechanical and robotic when he was in there a little bit. And it was with Cleves too, to an extent. My point is, as good as Charlie Bell became, he would not have been able to do that as a freshman. Doug Davis was the backup point guard in 1998 when Charlie Bell was a freshman. And then 99, he started to become the backup point guard. Although they experimented with David Thomas and some other people. But Akins is good. Charlie Bell was good. But Bell was not a point guard as a freshman. He darn sure was not a starting point guard. So anyone that thinks Jaden Akins can come in and be a starting point guard, maybe he's better than I'm expecting, but that would be asking a lot. Detroit Spartan says, don't sleep on Christie. I've watched him play a lot. He's the type of kid that usually goes to Duke and torches us. He can get points in so many different ways, extremely talented offensively, says Detroit Spartan. Rob South says, no disrespect, but this ain't it. I don't know what he's talking about, but I agree. This ain't it. One Mr. T. Bone Man says, Bone Man in the house. It's good to have one Mr. T. Bone. Yeah, something like that. Gregory Clark. Looks like Gregory, what is that? Is that a largemouth bass? Can't blow that up. Looks like Gregory Clark is demonstrating that he can be a provider for the misses. Good for him. Gregory Clark says, I think it will pay off to have the big men, Bingham, Sissoko, Marble, playing more minutes. I'm still concerned about the rebounding, though. Marble looks lost on D, says Detroit, or just says Spartan MD. At times, you have to agree with that. Did I lose something? Test. I might have lost. Test. There we go. All right. Gregory Clark says a lot of the little things just are not being done. Following shots, boxing out, going up after the ball, on the break, take it to the hole. Gordon Tadona says the game is Saturday. Is it Saturday? That's right. MSU number 1 fan says, when is spring football game and who do you think will start at quarterback? Next year at quarterback, I'm thinking it's going to be Russo. I don't think they brought him in to sit. Spring game, they've not announced yet. Probably, I'm guessing the 14th or the 21st. Spunky181 says, sorry, but I see Lawyer on the court and want to change the TV. You don't have to apologize to me. Apologize to Foster. But he is what he is, and Michigan State is what it is. Gregory Clark says, Marble is getting better, but all the big men look a little lost at times, even Hauser. of whom is put in that role. Hall is improving, crash the boards, and run up the floor. Gregory Clark is making some demands. He wants his team to look like past Michigan State teams, and I understand. Detroit Spartan says, style points are meaningless. We just need to win, ugly or not. And this might be a team that's going to have to win ugly. Matter of fact, it's got to be a team that wins ugly. I want to see Lankford become a 40% shooter again from three, and I want to see Lawyer become a 44% shooter from three. And I know it's Scott Report and teams are getting out on him and so forth. I'm not saying he's got to hunt his shot, but when shots present themselves to those two gentlemen, Michigan State needs them to be the best version of themselves. Aaron Henry too, of course. Everybody's got to play their best. And it's within them to become somewhat difficult to beat. What do we have here? He's not a point guard, Detroit Spartan says. I think he's talking about Lawyer. I don't know who you're talking about. I wonder how far behind Lawyer Hoiberg is right now. Spartan MD says, hoping he can be like Charlie Bell. Interesting you should mention that because I just went through that Charlie Bell comparison, talking about Jaden Akins. Detroit Spartan says, agreed, but he needs to be at his natural position off the ball with a competent point guard at the point, talking about Jaden Akins. I would agree with that. Jaden Akins is a shooting guard and would do really well if he had a pure point guard with him rather than having it all in his lap. We'll have to wait and see. Will Starworth says, Sparty's Bar used to be one of the best spots on Thursdays back in the day. Sparty's. Was that the place over there across from Odie's? Over there by Municipal Park? It's called Steakhouse Philly now. Is that where Sparty's was? Did that used to be like a country western type of bar type of thing? I never went in there. Spartan MD says that was Jalen Terry. Jalen Terry had a good game the other day against somebody, but the guy they missed out on was Carlik Jones, doing a great job at Louisville. Grad transfer. Where was he from? Fairfield, I think. He's averaging like 17 a game for Louisville. He could be ACC first team, all Big Ten. All Big Ten. ACC, all first team, all ACC. Gordon Tenona says, nothing better than Max Bar. Now you're speaking my language, Gordon Tenona. Now you're speaking my language, my man. Max Bar, with the Max muck, all the mud on the floor, the stupid jukebox. It's a great jukebox, right? Oldies. You know, back then that was like 1988 when I'd go there, 1989. And some of the songs that were played, you look back at it, was oldies, but you stop and think about it, it was only 1988. I mean, you know, on campus, what kind of music was there? There was rock music, and then there was rap was starting. You always had R&B and stuff, or whatever you want to call it. They didn't call it hip-hop yet. But at Max, it was rock, right? In a lot of places, it was rock. Well, rock music began, 1955 in some ways, and it didn't really become classic rock until, early 60s. So it's 1988. So there had only been like 25 years of rock music. So there was not a lot to choose from. We thought there was a lot to choose from back then. But, like Pearl Jam hadn't come along yet and all that stuff. Foo Fighters hadn't come along yet and all that stuff. So, I mean, there were oldies there and people sung along at Max Bar and it was fun. It was good. I used to hate it when people would play the wrong songs on that jukebox at Max Bar. You go there sometimes and they play like songs that just like kill the mood. Nothing against Santana. I like Santana. I saw Santana. But I don't want to hear, Black Magic Woman would just kind of kill the mood in there a little bit, So me and some of my idiot friends, we go to Max Bar, and if we had there's a friend of mine that went to Grand Valley. When he came to town, Grand Valley State University, when he came to town, we're going to Max, and we got to make sure they're playing the right songs. So we had nothing else to do. This is where we'd go to Max Bar, and at like 6 o'clock when the place opened, we would monopolize the jukebox and just pump all the quarters in and play all of our songs. And then we'd go get something. We'd go down to, there was like Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips down the road. We'd go down there and eat, hang out, whatever. And then the Coon Dog would come into town from Grand Valley. And then we'd go to Max Bar. By that time, it was like 9 o'clock at night. And then our songs are coming up. And we'd paid for all the songs all the way till 2 in the morning. People didn't know that we'd done that, but we didn't do it a lot. We did that a few times. But I like what Gordon Janone is saying about Max Barr. Akins is the key, Detroit Spartan says. Lawyer is horrible, says Don Twan 1. Detroit Spartan says he loves Pierre Brooks. He's born to play for hoops. He's born to play hoops for Tom Izzo. Yeah, Pierre Brooks is a physical guy, a leader. You're right. He's the consummate Izzo type of guy. Izzo's going to love him. He already loves him. Detroit Spartan says Christie can shoot the three as well. Don Twan says Ricks. Ricks was his, looks like he's talking about what was the Thursday night place. He's talking about Ricks. Ricks had 99-cent pitchers on Thursday nights, right? 99-cent pitchers. Yeah. They used to actually have live music at Rick's American Cafe. Speaking of which, I'm going to go there right now. There it is. Detroit Spartan says the state of Indiana knew Henry was good. They probably knew Ricks was good too. Detroit Spartan says Henry is not coming back, period. I agree with that. Gregory Clark says it looks like Kithier has COVID. Well, that was the fear 4 days ago, but he tested negative over and over and over. Scott Skiles reference. You're welcome, Russ Humphrey. Kim Truax says is this. Or he says is this. Film study. So then we got into the film study a little bit. That's when we're going through the film study portion of the program. If you missed it, this will be replaying in an hour. It won't be replaying in an hour. You can go back and watch it again. Larry King used to say that all the time. This show will be replaying again in an hour, and then you listen to it, and then you say it again in another hour. I'm talking about the old Larry King, the old radio show on Westwood 1 at about 1 in the morning. But then the last hour that it was replayed, it wasn't true when he said it's going to be replayed in an hour. It'd be impossible for it to be replayed over and over and over. I never understood that. I liked him, though, on that show. The old radio show. Lawyer had a real tough time on defense the last few minutes. Brian V says, and you're exactly right. That's why they had to take him out. And that's not the first time that's happened. And I think they're getting to the point where they know that's going to be the case. And Izzo likes to finish games with his best defensive teams. That's what I think it's going to be going forward. Lawyer's going to come out in the last 5 minutes. Or they will have that card to play. They will have that option. Like a closer type of thing. Okay, this is our closer 5. Watts at the point. And Watts maybe not point on defense, maybe not the point on offense. But if that's going to be the case, they're going to have to script some things. And it's hard to script things for end of game because you're not going to know how the game went and what worked and so forth. But if I don't hate that. I mean, they don't have a lot of good options in terms of who's going to quarterback in the last few minutes. I think Lawyer can do it. But then he's giving things up at the other end on defense. So if they're going to go with Watts, they need to keep repping it in practice. And here's the thing. If that's what they want to do to finish games, go with Rocket Watts as a point defender. And he's going to be occasionally run the offense too. Because they'll go through Henry, but Henry's not going to be bringing it up. Maybe once in a while. But some points, in some situations, Rocket Watts will become the de facto point guard. You know, when you get those situations where they might run a play with Henry and it's closed and it's covered, then the ball goes back to the point guard and it's Rocket Watts and the shot clock says 10, 9. Now you got to be a point guard. We saw when we went through film study a minute ago, there was the one play when they made Rocket, trying to make him force him to the right. He went left, got bottled up, gave it back to Henry, and he threw up a shot and went in with one of the shot clock. Situations like that, they can say, okay, Rocket is in as the point guard for defensive purposes, but on offense, Henry's running it. And you can say that all you want, but there will be instances in which the ball goes back to Rocket Watson, shot clock says 11, and now he's got to be an actual point guard. And maybe he can do it. Maybe he'll be better at that, where he's just got to create something rather than having, 27 on the clock and he's trying to run an offense. We saw him make some mistakes against Nebraska that way. My point is, if they're going in that direction to have a closer 5, these are our 5 defensive players. We're closing games with these 5, and it's not going to be Hogard and it's not going to be Lawyer closing games. If they're thinking that, and that's obviously one of their options in their hand right now, if they're thinking that, and if Rocket Watts is the guy they want on the court for defensive purposes at the end of the game, then I think they need to invest more point guard minutes in Rocket Watts in the first half of games instead of Hogard. Because if they invest those minutes in it, maybe he'll make some mistakes, but if he gets through them, maybe you can iron that out, tighten those screws, and over the course of a couple of games, it's getting late in the season. I understand that. You can't blow up many more spacecrafts on your way to the moon right now. You got to be a sharp version of yourself. But if you have Rocket Watts getting those first half A.J. Hogard point guard minutes, you invest those minutes in him, then you might get a better version of Rocket Watts at point guard in the last 5 minutes if you foresee that to be the way you want to close games. Does that make sense? Troy Spartan says Foster is just about 5'8". Yeah. He's doing his best. I'm not criticizing him at all. And he was a great high school player, great career. He's doing his best. And he keeps trying to, he worked on his game a lot in the summer. He is what he is. He can't, he's doing his best. That's all I'm going to say. Spunky181 says, need more of this. Talking about the film study we did a minute ago. Talking about what were they thinking when they recruited him. Greg Clark says needs to work through screens. Let's see. The half-court offense needs to be run by Henry, in my opinion. Okay. If you run it, if Henry's running the half-court offense, I mean, Michigan State's best half-court offense against Penn State was Henry posting up. And a lot of the offense ran through him. But if Henry's going to be the point guard, now he can't post up. He can't throw it to himself posting up. And the shooting's been inconsistent. Henry was good in the lane, posting up against guards, patient in there. So if you want to get that from Henry, which I think is wise for them, then he can't be the point guard as well. If you had two Aaron Henrys, maybe so. But even Henry as a passer goes haywire once in a while. He threw that transition pass off the backboard the other day. And at the end of the game, that turnover for Malik Hall, when I saw it, I thought it was a bad pass, and it didn't surprise me. State was up by 2, going for a TKO blow, throw it away, come down here, and they missed a 3. Lankford got the defensive rebound, fouled, and he missed the free throw. But that pass, I thought it was a bad pass. I've not gone back and looked at it again. I apologize. Izzo thought that Malik Hall was fouled, so he didn't think it was a bad read or a bad pass. I'll have to go back and look at it again to see if I would agree with him on that or not. But Henry didn't have as many bad passes in this game, but in other games, I mean, I showed you in the film study a minute ago when he left his feet to throw that blind pass out to Hauser in the corner. There's 2 or 3 passes a game where Henry, makes some passes. It's like, oh man, he's not going to like the way that looks on film, to be diplomatic. Can he eradicate those from his system and get over those and decrease the number of those type of plays? Sure. It needs to happen right now. But for those reasons, I'm not in the camp that believes that Henry needs to be the point guard from start to finish. You need him elsewhere. And I think the offense is pretty good with Lawyer. Not great, but it's functioning. But that doesn't cure the problems that we're seeing on defense here and there. And it was a problem against Wisconsin. When that one got away, it's a problem. Detroit Spartan says Foster used to be ultra confident, and now he knows he's a liability defensively, and it's killed his confidence offensively. Gregory Clark says don't take Henry out of shooting guard. He should run the point. He should not run the point. I guess that gets back to what I was saying a moment ago. Sparty7779 says our average basketball recruiting rank since 2017 is number 35. The prior decade, we did much better with 6 top 15 classes. Given our Hall of Fame coach, NBA players, and titles, why the struggles? Yeah, for 2021 so far. Good points about recruiting. And, that class with Bingham and Lawyer and those guys, Henry, that class has not looked so great. And not just those guys. I mean, those guys are okay in some ways, but point well taken. Chris Trinham says if Henry ran point guard, turnovers would go up even more. Plus, he would expend a lot of energy doing that. I agree with Chris Trinham on that. Stroker says, what's up, my Holmes? That's my man, Stroker. Stroker's a good man. Hope Stroker was around for the film study. I don't know if he saw it or not, but I'm trying to think if I mentioned any. I didn't mention any Stroker's friends today. All right, Brian V says, not playing Henry point guard. He needs to run the offense and half court if they can't get into transition. A lot of people voting in that with that party right now. Let's see. What do we have here? Definitely some more Henry talk. We're about done. Yeah, that is your clip, Detroit Spartan. Thank you for that. That was a great day. I like seeing this. Talking about the senior day, beating Ohio State last year to clinch the third straight Big Ten title. Timothy Johnson with the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Give us some thumbs up. People need some more. They got Rod against Notre Dame, says Gregory Clark. I agree. And Martin Nice Fish, Gregory again. Doors Fan 91 says, how many football recruits you think Michigan State will get out of Ohio for 2022? What did they get last year? A couple. They need to be busier in there. You know, I did the story about Ryan Baer, the offensive lineman from Eastlake, Ohio, a couple days ago. They're in Indiana a little bit more this year for whatever reason. That Popeye Williams guy is interesting. Ohio. I'm thinking a couple, but it won't be like the old days when they would do, you know, they would lose on recruits and then they'd hit their networking. Mark D'Antonio's staff, they would hit their networking and wind up with some pretty good Ohio guys through networking and senior film and things of that nature. I don't think it'll be like that. They're not relying on Ohio like they used to, but there's still damage that can be done in there. You know, Michigan State was in on Emil Wagner, the offensive tackle from Huber Heights, Wayne, but I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure if that one's still the case. I'll have to look into some of these others. There's the corner from Lakota West. I've not heard. I'll have to look into some of these things. But we talked about Ryan Baer. They like him. CJ Doggett, the defensive tackle. I think Kenny Jordan had a story on him at SpartanMag.com. So I'm thinking two or three. I'm thinking, two or three. Not the usual 7 or 8 like they used to do. Desert Spartan 1 says, I was in Lincoln for that 2015 Nebraska game. Brutal. Chris Trinum says, bizarre game. I'm sure Coach D would play that one differently if he could go back in that to do that one again. Brian V says that was an inflated 30 wins with Miles Bridges' team. I agree. Yeah, and if they'd have beaten Nebraska and gone undefeated, then they would have played Florida State. Maybe they would have gone unscathed. No, that was a different year. That was 2015. They were undefeated. I'm getting mixed up between 13 and 15. My bad. Christian Mathieu says, you see a potential starting lineup for the rest of the season? Talking about basketball. Solid. Penn State is not bad. And had a double-digit lead, then it went away. Penn State might have been the better team that night. Michigan State starting a solid starting lineup, he's saying. I mean, Lawyer, and we talked about, if he can become a good shooter, and he has been in the past, and Lankford can be the best version of him, and Henry can continue to build, and Bingham can continue to build, and Malik Hall provide some functionality. Team defense is improving. Bingham has something to do with that. And the players just being around Tom Izzo day-to-day routine is helping on defense. Yes, that's a solid team. Now, that might be a team that's still going to lose to Indiana because Indiana's hot. Might lose to Iowa. Might lose to Michigan. Might lose to Illinois. Illinois' top 10. They play Ohio State again. They're top 5. Michigan State could become a solid team and still lose those games. Now, if they start losing and fall out of the NCAA tournament bubble, then can they keep everybody together? That'll be a new thing that Izzo has not had to do since 1997. That'll be interesting. Solid, yeah. And I think that if there had been no COVID shutdowns, even with the problems at point guard, if Izzo had been able to have his hands on this team from the beginning, including the 2 weeks that he missed in November, I think they eventually would have eked out a 500 Big Ten season and gotten in. Even with all the problems at point guard, he would have gotten it done. Even with the Big Ten being as strong as it is. And if they can beat Iowa, then they've got a chance to maybe get to that level anyway, but they got to win on Saturday. I look at that one because that's a winnable game because Iowa's lost. They beat Rutgers last night, but Iowa has they've lost like 3 of their last 5 or whatever it is. And Michigan State played them tough the first time. So that leads me to believe that Michigan State's got a chance to get a big win on Saturday. I'm not saying they're favored. I'm not predicting they're going to win. I'm saying you look at it and you can say they got a chance. Same thing against Purdue. Need to have those two. Need to beat Maryland at the end of the year. And then you need to find one more win in there, and then you finish the season 8-10 in the Big Ten. That might get them on the that might get them the positive side of the bubble. That might do it. And it's hard to say from year to year, but you look back the last time there was an NCAA tournament 2 years ago. You look at Minnesota, the Golden Gophers. Michigan State played them in the second round of the NCAA tournament in Des Moines, Iowa. Right, that Gophers team. They were 2 games under 500 in 2019. They were 9-11 in the Big Ten and made the NCAA tournament. Their overall record was 22-14. Well, that's what it was after Michigan State beat them. They were 21-13 at the end of the regular season. 21-13, 9-11. Now I know the NCAA tournament selection committee changes every year a little bit. So whatever the criteria is one year might not be exactly the same the next year, or in this case 2 years later. But I think if Michigan State gets up to 2 games under 500. I think that might do it. Now, I'm saying that, but I'm not aware what the net rankings are. I'm not sure what their quadrant 1 wins are and all those things. But if they can get up to 8-10 in the Big Ten, that will have meant they will have beaten, Purdue and Iowa, Maryland, and then maybe one other top 25 type of team, whether it's Indiana or Ohio State or Michigan. Michigan's been good. Michigan State's been shaky. Talking about rescheduling some of those lost games. I'm not sure rescheduling lost games would help Michigan State right now. It'd give them chances to win more games, but I think it would. You start compacting the schedule with more and more games, you'll get a lesser version of Michigan State, a lesser version of other teams also, but could be a problem. Could be a problem. I think there is room in the schedule to play Michigan twice at the end of the season. Like they play Michigan at the end of the year, like on a Saturday. Michigan State has that week off. I think they could play on Tuesday of that week. I'm not sure that's a good thing for Michigan State, lose to Michigan twice. I say that, and what's going to happen? They might go out and beat them once and put them in. So whatever I say is best, don't listen to me because I don't know. All right, on that note, we're just going to go. Let's see if we've got anything, any big complaints. I'm looking in here in the suggestion box. Vincero says, what is your take on Amani Bates and Jaden Akins? I don't know. Just a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Who's Bobby Jones? Gordon Tinoda says, who's Bobby Jones? Bobby Jones was junior college defensive lineman. That's right. From one of the Dakotas or Kansas or something like that. Came in, did not last very long. He was a 4-star JUCO defensive lineman, came in. Why are you guys talking about Bobby Jones? I was scrolling through this. Desert Spartan 1 says, I know you were playing Men Without Hats at Rick's in 88-89. Me? No. Men Without Hats. Did they do West End Girls? Was that their song? What was their song? Safety Dance. Okay. That's right. Safety Dance. That was going on at Bazaar. Safety Dance was that song was big in the early 80s. I think I was in 9th grade when Safety Dance came out. But they were still playing it at that's the type of song that they would play at Max. And Star Farm, who's a band that plays around here a little bit that people of my age like a little bit. That's on their playlist. It used to be anyway, 12 years ago. That's a long time ago. So that was the last time I was at Rick's. A friend of mine put together a party for all of us idiots when we all turned 40, called it 40 Fest. And a lot of idiots came in from all over the country and stayed around town in East Lansing. And we went out and had a lot of refreshments and roamed around the streets like it was 1991. And Star Farm was playing at Rick's. They're a like a retro 80s cover band, and it's fun. And that's the last time I was at Rick's. And if you're in a pack of old guys and girls, you can go into Rick's back then anyway and not look ridiculous. Now, if I went in by myself, it'd be ridiculous. I'd look like the dude that walks around. You know the dude with the briefcase that's like dressed up in the tie and East Lansing with like the bald spot in the back of his head? Remember that dude? You know, if you... like back in the late 80s and 90s, that dude that would just walk around and had that distressed look on his face, you know, and he would talk. And he looked like he was having a decent time, but looked like he was going to come in and like tell kids what was wrong, but he never did. You know who I'm talking about. Some of you people know who I'm talking about. Well, listen to this. My friend Enzima came up from Florida last spring, and me and my brother-in-law went out, and we went to the Riviera Cafe. Again, there's 3 of us, so it wasn't that pathetic. And we're in the Riv, hanging out and being too loud and talking about stuff. And that dude came in. That old dude with the bald spot and the tie and the briefcase. You know what I'm talking about. He's still doing that. He was doing that in the 80s. And he's still doing that. He's still out there. He looks older. He still has the tie on and the suit. And he comes in by himself and he's got that look on his face. He acts like Jim from Taxi. Remember Jim from Taxi? He acts like that, but he's like a well-dressed Jim from Taxi with a briefcase. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, I was stunned to see that dude is still doing that. And we're up at the bar talking. I talked to the bartender. I'm like, does that dude come in here? He says, sometime. I'm like, that dude used to do that back in the 80s. And the bartender's like, no kidding. You kidding? You serious? I'm like, no, that dude. I was like, Butch, look at that dude. Remember that dude used to do that? And he's like, yeah, that dude. And talking about that dude used to do that in 1991. Talk about season tickets. Anyway, on that note, I think that'll do it. If Stroker's still watching, he'll probably get a kick out of that. Safety dance. Yeah, thanks to Desert Spartan. Anyway, appreciate all you hooligans hanging out here and having a good time with us. Creeped me out. Yeah, Detroit Spartan. You know who I'm talking about. You know exactly who I'm talking about. He creeped everybody out. You know, it's like, and I never talked to him because you avoid that dude. He'd walk in Dooley's or someplace or Harper's, and you're just like, oh, there's that dude. And he would go to the bar and like, I didn't like study him or anything, but he would come in and I don't remember ever seeing him hold court and talk to people. He would just like creep you out, right? And when I saw him at the Riv 2 years ago, I went up and talked to him for a minute. I was like, hey, what's up? And he was like scared of me for a second. But yeah, Stroker, he was no Al the Can Man. Al the Can Man. Al the Can Man passed away, I think, a few winters ago. But yeah, that dude, Stroker, you remember the dude I'm talking about, right? The old dude with the bald spot, you know, back here and the tie and all that. That dude, yeah, creepy dude. And that guy didn't have like a nickname, I don't think, because there was the Can Man, and I don't know who else had nicknames. But that dude, anyway, he's still doing his thing. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad he's still doing his thing. I'm still doing my thing. Why shouldn't he? Anyway, appreciate everybody checking in. Stroker, thanks for chiming in. Hey, everybody, have a great Thursday. Michigan State, you be rooting for them. Light your candles for them because they're going to need it. And they got a chance. They got a chance to win that game. They got a chance to beat Purdue and get up to, what would that make them? Would that make them 6-7? Holy Lordy, they go 6-7. I know bald spots. I can't talk. I got one coming in my damn self. So, what are you going to do? I can't do anything about it. But take care of your Spartans. Take care of each other. Be good, people. And don't let them separate us. Okay? We'll see you next time. Thanks for checking in. You've been watching Spartan Mag Live. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Become a subscriber. We need you. We like you. We appreciate you. Take care, people.